Alright, for this project we're going to model the high poly of the rounded dice. Okay, so a little bit different shape, a little bit different topology. Instead of having the rounded square sides, this one has circular sides, and very, very round bevels in between. So the shape that we're going to be modeling looks something like this. That's kind of the triangulated topology. And then over on the left hand side you can see more of the kind of a high poly outline, and you can see it's basically going to be a sphere, a quad ball, and we're going to basically lathe off the top, bottom, and the sides. Okay, so to create this shape, what we want to begin with is a cube instead of a sphere, because we want it to create the quad ball versus the standard pole sphere. So we're going to smooth it 3 divisions or so, 2-3 divisions. I believe 3 divisions is what we're going to want to give us enough detail in order to hold the curve. So scale it up. To be about the general size, then create a cylinder. And as you can already see from the outline, the cylinder, what we're going to need is we're going to need that top face. Set the subdivisions to 16 so that our 16 sides of our top and our quad base geometry should match up pretty well. So select the square, and then here you can see by growing that selection we have the 16-sided border. So that's about what we're going to be using for our cylinder. Now if it needs to go larger, it goes larger. The main thing will be is to we're going to need to match the size of the top. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of all the geometry with this cylinder that I don't need. So the side walls and the bottom. Alright, I'm just going to move this out of the way, and then I'm going to pull my quad ball out. Now what I would strongly recommend doing is duplicating your quad ball and moving into position. Keep it center of the origin, but this way if you mess up, which I messed up quite a few times getting this one down, you'll have us a backup. So this ring of faces here is basically going to be what we're going to be working with, or what we're going to create. You want to pretty well get rid of all the bottom of it, and I'm just going to show you an example here. You don't have to follow along exactly with this part, but what we want to do is create just this kind of top cap piece. Okay, and while that doesn't look like it'll be enough geometry, when we snap everything together and move it into location, that edge and the other edge, what you'll find is that the two will work out very well. So as a matter of fact, that bottom edge is a little bit too much, so we actually want this shorter piece, and you can see how it just will roll right into place and create that side. So if you look at the corner of a quad ball, you'll see that it has this kind of triangular pattern where 3 intersect. That's what we're going to work with, just kind of the top triangle. So this right now I'm going to go model it for reals, and what I'm going to do is scale up my quad ball to be the same size as my example geometry, and then move the cylinder top into position so that it's the same height as the example geometry. If you use a smaller cylinder or a smaller sphere, or larger cylinder or larger or smaller sphere, depending on the ratio of the height of your cylinder, will affect the final shape. So what you're going to want to make sure that is, if you want it to look like this dice exactly, then you're going to need to line up your cylinder top and your sphere to be the same size, because a change in either one of those radius, what you'll find is it'll be a different shape. It'll still be a dice. You can still make a dice out of it. It just will have more angled sides. So I'm going to go ahead and delete all the geometry that I don't need. Make sure everything's all centered up. Make sure the cylinder top is snapped to the origin. And what I'm going to do is go into the top view here and basically just position these vertices to match up with our cylinder. I actually decided to do a 2-pass because all the snapping was sending my snapping sky high. Things just weren't quite lining up like I wanted them to, so I'm just going to do a 1-pass here to drag all the vertices over their respective cylinder points, and then I'll align it up and snap it in a minute. What you'll also notice is because I'm using a larger area, the 16 sides that I would want to use is still in the middle of the dice. So we're actually going to have a few more edges. So what has to happen is I'm going to have to overlap vertices, and we'll just weld all these together, merge them together. It should work out fine. So the main thing is I still have 16 sides going around the object. We could use more, but it changes the math for being able to weld our divots and our faces. So what I'm doing is going back through here and just merging some vertices and then selecting some faces. I'm going to flatten all this stuff out. So take one little section at a time, flatten that, flatten all this in here. So you can see I've kind of placed the cylinder is the height that everything needs to be. And so if I go ahead and select this stuff, scale it all together, and then snap it down, it should all roughly work out to be the height that I'm wanting it to be. So now we have this kind of flattened cube. Got lots of kind of tessellation and some merging vertices and things like that. Not a big deal. We can clean all that up later. The main idea though is just to make sure that we have the face that we want, the shape that we want. So here you can see what I'm doing is selecting that bottom edge, and so this little piece here is all we really need. Okay, that's the reconstructed version of what we had earlier. So let's go ahead and test it real quick. All right, yep, that locks in pretty well. Duplicate it, rotate it, spin it around. Yep, that's going to work very, very well. Now, again, I strongly recommend just going ahead and testing these, making sure everything assembles before you get it go any further. Just to make sure that everything is working. Mesh, combine, weld all those verts together, which that should without it go out without a hitch. If it does, check your tolerances. And what I'm going to do here is target weld using target weld center and just collapse some of these triangulated areas into just one edge loop. That'll just kind of make the geometry a little bit cleaner. Without changing the shape too much. But we'll still have that nice round form. We just won't have, we'll have more edge loops now versus having small little edges. And so now you can see when I smooth it, the cylinder sides, cylinder face, flat faces are creating a nice clean edge across the outside. That's what we're really looking for. If I bevel this, keep it kind of tight, one segment or two segments, either way, and smooth it, you'll see that our main intersection there that we're looking at, there's a couple hiccups on the other side, but the main intersection we're looking at, nice clean geometry, nice smooth shape. I think this is going to work. So I haven't modified too much. So I think this is going to be a good working shape. Now, what I tended to do was, because it's just going to be 8 corners, just delete it all down to where it's just this little corner piece. And then from that, if you do use your snaps and duplicates, you can rebuild the dice just from the one corner. All right, so go ahead, get this piece made. The next part, we're going to go over the dice faces.